Mr. Chris Brown is on with us. Again, he's a gentleman who had his own experience. He's had his sightings, and he's gone public with it, and he's told a lot of people in a lot of different radio shows what happened. And now, we're honored to have him on this show and hear for ourselves, what happened to him and what his experience was like. And he can share with you, the audience. And again, hopefully, you engage in the conversation tonight and you call and ask Chris any questions. Chris, I'm sure, is more than open to having you guys call in and ask him what anything is on your mind. Chris, welcome to Skywatchers Radio, my friend. And, we're happy to have you here, man. We really are.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Now, for the audience who might not be aware of your story, I know you've been on Open Minds, the website. They've ran an article about you, and you've done the rounds on a couple of different radio shows. So some people might know, what happened to you, your background. But for the audience right now listening in, there's a lot of people on the, listening in tonight. Tell us what happened to you, bro. Tell us your story.
Mine was just it started off on the 2011 and August 18th. It was at about 8:50. I had went out at p.m. in the evening. I had went out to go water my garden in my back, and I watered that for a couple of minutes and pulled my hose around to the side of the house all the way in front to water my front yard, and I had put a bunch of weed killer stuff on my yard that day. I was needing to water it and keep up, and so I pulled my hose out. It was probably about maybe 9 o'clock around that time, straight up p.m. And I pulled it out to get all the kinks out, and I found myself out in the middle of the street. It was not real dark, but not all the way dark. It was still kind of light, because it was in the summertime, so it was kind of at that point where it was kind of getting dark, but it was still light,
Right.
And so I have a fields all around me, and when I had pulled it out in the road, there's a field right straight above me, and I noticed out in the field some blue and red lights. They kind of really were scattered, and there was still kind of, light. I just didn't take it in. And so it seemed kind of odd, but I just really didn't take it in enough to sit there and to take it in. So I pulled my hose back and started watering, and watered the one half of the yard for, probably 20 minutes, I'd say. And I have hedges on the one side, so I can't see down the field. I did that side of the yard, like say, for about 20 minutes, and then I went to go pull my hose out again. I found myself out in the middle of the road. It was a little bit darker, and it was, I'd say, probably, 20 minutes later. So when I pulled it out, I got, I'd say, I don't know, maybe 40 feet of the hose stretched out, and when I got out in the middle of the road, it just was boom. It just caught my eye then, and it was out about a mile from me, out in the field. Actually, on the pictures on the site, they show the pictures of kind of the outline of the tree where I'm talking about. Behind the tree was this. All I seen what caught my eye was this gigantic, huge glass dome that sat on this top of this disc. This disc had lights going around it. I couldn't see the whole circumference of it. It was so big. If I had to put a size on it, all I could put it on would be an aircraft carrier, luxury cruise liner. That's about the only size I could put on it. And it had blue and red lights. They seemed to kind of be twinkling and kind of going counterclockwise from each other back and forth. And I was like, whoa. I mean, it was, I threw the hose. I remember just chucking the hose and getting it out of the street. And I just sat there and literally sat in there thinking to myself, is this happening? is this even real? But I knew it was kind of real. I mean, I knew it was happening anyway. And so when I went over there to kind of get a better look at it, because I thought I'd seen it maybe kind of start to move, but when I really kind of looked at it, and then that's when it just this hard to explain because it was like you're going down a roller coaster really super fast, you know, and you get that feeling in your belly where you get that
little rush. Yeah, the little feeling.
The little rush.
The rush. Yeah. The adrenaline rush. It's adrenaline. It's adrenaline rush. Is what it is.
Yeah. Well, this was just kind of my body. All of a sudden got everything was real pinkish, real kind of blue, was kind of pinkish, everything got real blurry.
Okay.
Just for a second, and I just in my head, just like said, "Oh God!" in my head, just because I felt it. I just felt like it was like trying to pull me in or something. I don't know. It was
like
a really odd,
like a tractor beam type of, like it just like a little.
Well, I guess literally. That's all I can say. It felt like I just would have just let my body go. That who knows where it happened, but it was just the first thing because I got so scared, you know, that I felt like that, and I go, "Oh God!" in my head, of course, and then it stopped.
Uh-huh.
I didn't sit there and go, "Oh my wow, what a feeling I just had." I just was so still caught up in the moment as it was still there in front of me.
Well,
and
Chris,
so,
let me ask you: did you have any missing time when you felt that feeling?
No, I didn't have any missing time because I had my iPod with me the whole entire time.
Okay.
And I knew what the times that it was when I walked out to water, and so like I said, I had that feeling for a second, and then I said, "Oh God," and it went away, and I just I didn't sit there and go, "Oh wow, how did I just feel?" I was still so caught up in the moment. But I was in a weird situation where I was the only one out there at that time. There was no one even on the streets. And I'm in a small town anyway, but still, it was just so dead. Nobody was around. It was like it knew that like it was like I was the only one out there or something. And
let's tell the audience by where exactly did this take place. You're out in
I'm in Sublimity, Oregon.
Okay, and that's where this incident happened.
That's about 50 miles outside of Portland.
Okay.
Anyway, believe it or not, during this time, I started to rush over to my neighbor's house, and I had really kind of didn't know them real well then, and well, just kind of the people they are, and I kick myself to this day, but why I stopped, I don't know, but I stopped. And I went back, and I had my iPod, and I went to go look at it, and then that's when I noticed it started to move on me. And then and so it was kind of like getting the rings up going, oh, yeah, I had my iPod. I mean, I was in such in shock and awe for a little bit. It actually took me a little bit to figure out that the heck I had my iPod on me. But I was excited and shaking so hard. I couldn't even, I just had the iPod not long.
At any point, did you scream to try to get somebody out there to like, maybe be a witness for you, or?
You know, I didn't. Would have, could have, should have. Why? I mean, you know, and I could have. Angel, I could have went over to the neighbor's house. I could have banged on the neighbor's door and could have came out there, and I'm sure, but I was just such caught up with this moment at the time of like, oh my God, this is, I don't know. For all I know, it could have been controlling my brain. All I know is when I went
that's actually hold on. That's actually a good question. Did you feel like you were in control while this was happening, or did you feel like you weren't in control of your own actions as this was taking place?
I felt like I wasn't in control of my own actions. I felt really sporadic in my head. I'm usually a pretty clear thinker, and you know, and try to be clever, I guess. And to me, it literally, I put the dum-dum cap on. It's literally what I felt like. It felt like I put the dum-dum cap on, you know, just
the reason I ask that, or I make that as a point, is often people who have experienced abductions would say that they lose all control of what's going on. Literally, you know, they're being led somewhere they can't control their own actions, what they're doing, but they're aware of what's going on. So I wanted to see if maybe that was kind of what's happening to you, and also, was it was happening to you, was it similar to like what happened to Travis Walton, that he got hit by that beam? Because I'm surprised you weren't knocked out. So I asked you if you had any missing time. Maybe you were knocked out or something, and you woke up. Because if you're knocked out and you wake up, you might not notice. It might just be very instant type of thing for you. So that's why I was asking, was there any missing time at all? But you said there wasn't. I was able to up there when I seen the time when I came out, because I looked at the time on the oven on my oven. It has the clock on it, okay. And I seen it when I walked out the back to go water, and it was 8:50. Like 8:51 or something like that when I p.m. when I went out to go start the water and back. And then when I got my iPod out to start to record, it has the time right on it, right when I turn it on, and there's the time on it. And then I got to slide, you got to slide the little thing over, and then right. And then the dum-dum cap went on right there, trying to sit there to get it. But anyway, it's kind of go back to where I was is when I went and I stopped running around trying to go to the neighbors, because I just was concentrate on, okay, I have the iPod in, and that's when I went and, because I noticed it moved 3 times. And so I ran down. That's actually really, truly the first that I really felt like, okay, this is happening, was when it actually moved, because it really didn't move. And it was almost like until it wasn't moving, I was just sitting there in my head kind of trying to think, is this all still really going on? As crazy as that sounds, because it was such an incredible thing, and it was so gigantic. So anyway, that's when I seen it started to move. So when I ran down to the stop sign, and I'm sitting there trying to get video record of it, and it I can't even figure out how to even record this. Get the recording button on my iPod. I'm shaking so hard. I actually had the iPod on. I'm missing almost the whole entire encounter trying to get this thing on videotape. I got the thing on the ground, the iPod on the concrete with my finger trying to push the button with my hand, holding my hand to hold my finger in place because it was shaking so hard. I can imagine. I'd be shaking so hard you can make a martini just putting it on my hand and letting me go. Are you kidding me? And I'm the one who always jokes around that, hey, I'm ready for an abduction. Come get me. I'm dying to go on a trip. But in reality, when we get into that position, I'm sure that all of us understand. We would all be shaking, my friend. So.
And I did, and I tried to take a deep breath. And I was trying to that was really, I was so concentrated on, because I had this iPod and I could get video of it, but I just was it just wasn't working. So then I even tried to get the Wi-Fi button to Wi-Fi my buddy, and I couldn't figure that out. So finally I just gave up. And then I just was staring at it, and it was so big. It was so weird because nobody was around. There was no cars or no nothing. It was just, the town was so dead. And then that's when I noticed it moved back and forth 3 times. It moved about 30 feet the first couple times, kind of seen from my view, and then on the 3rd time it took off. The glass bubbles was so huge. It had to be 300 feet. The glass bubble on the top of just the craft, but the whole the disc of the thing it was sitting kind of behind a valley with a line of trees. There's a valley that sits under there, and it must have been just swamped that whole entire valley behind there. And it was, and when it went by, the glass bubble, it just, the whole thing kept going. It was like Star Wars, like at the beginning of Star Wars, when you see the ship come, and then it keeps going and it keeps going and it keeps going. And I'm like, wow,
That's a great scene.
And I was just, excuse me, I was just, oh, whoa. So,
now, hold on. Wait. This is the event that happened to you on August 18th, 2011, right? Just so we're clear on the dates.
18th, yeah.
Okay, August 18th, 2011. This is when this was happening.
Yeah, that's the first encounter. So anyway, so then it took off east, and so I lost sight of it, and then that's when I started to kind of run back toward my place, thinking maybe I can see an open sky, or because I got trees all around me in Oregon, And then that is pretty much almost right directly above in the field area up in space, was all of a sudden I noticed this well, I could have been another craft, or I could have been it could have been an orb, or, you know, I don't know, but it just looked like a dot in space. It wasn't in the sky, it was in space. And it was just moving. I mean, it was going so fast. Well, I don't know how fast it was, but fast enough. And whoa! So I running back down, like back to my my driveway, like I was saying. Here I am trying to get this video out again. I'm still trying to figure out how to video this. I use this iPod with this video thing happening, and so anyway, I ended up losing sight of it again, and then that's when I just kind of just gave up, and then I lost sight of it, and then all of a sudden, really what caught my attention was my dog. He was in the house, but he barked, and then all the dogs around here started barking, and then right above, happened to look above my right-hand shoulder, and then come over the neighborhood. Oh, I don't know how high it would have been up. A smaller craft or something. It went over the neighborhood. All the dogs, as it went over, barked and went clear over into just about a block or so away over, and there's another field around there, and it's about my friend's house, and he had all his dogs outside, and they were all barking. And then it sat there for a second, and then it kind of got bright, and then it just disappeared. And I was just, oh my gosh, of course, you know. It was shortly after that, I was the only one here. Shortly after that, my wife came home with the kids, and I was telling her, oh my gosh.
How did you bring that up to the wife? Because I can only imagine this conversation. Honey, I saw a UFO. I mean, how does that conversation start up, and how does it go?
Gosh, you know, I was just in such a panic of. I just started wailing in on her and just tell it going on. It was all I guess I did, you know.
Were you nervous talking to the wife, or like were you talking a mile a minute, or were you calm and cool and collected?
Yeah, I was talking a mile a minute and nervous, but she could take me in, and she was getting it, and so here it had been. Within days, from the 18th, from the 27th was the last encounter, and during that time, in between those days, the next day especially, not the next day, a couple days after, I actually went and walked the block, and was seeing that if I seen anybody out there, and I approached just like one person I kind of felt comfortable with, and the other ones I knew. And asked them if they had seen anything, and no one had seen anything. And so the neighbor had went and came over, and I told her she's my age, in her 40s, and I was telling her, and she's like, oh, wow. And so when she went home, and she comes over, her and her daughter, who's 17 at the time, comes over about 5 minutes later in a panic, and her daughter says, oh my gosh, Chris, she goes, you aren't going to believe it. She goes, my friends were up at Macaulay Mountain on, I guess it was that night, and she goes, they seen the huge disc too. They said they watched it for 45 minutes, and they tried to get service on their phone, but it wasn't working. Why? They couldn't get video. Well, I don't know what that had to do with getting service, but anyway, she said that they couldn't. So anyway, but they watched it.
Was the line dead, or were they trying to call line and they couldn't make a call?
She was vague on really what she told me, or what they must have just told her. Huh. And so really that's all she said, you know. And so I just was like, oh wow, that made me feel good, because I was like, well, I knew darn well somebody had to have seen that, you know. I mean, for crying out loud, the thing was huge, right? And anyway, she could barely even talk. She was just like, you know, and she didn't know much about that, really. She just had heard her friends talking about it, and so she didn't know much. But it was during that time, I had been out every single night, watering late at night with my camera on. I took my camera out. I had it on. I charge it every single night and keep the video running on my wrist. Why watered the yard trying to go, and here it was. I'd be praying at night. I mean, I lay in bed for every night before I go to bed, before I go to sleep, and I would pray that I would have an encounter again, and I would have a detailed encounter. I prayed this for, 11 nights. Afterwards, it was Friday. It was the 26th. It was late. It was probably almost midnight, going to be the 27th. It was a Friday night. We were up, my wife had a friend over, and we were up watching movies, and movies got done at around probably about 11:55 p.m. on the 26th. And so we went and I drug my boy out there to go out with me, skywatching with me, while I went out and went underwater and get a little video. And so him and I went out there. He didn't want to go out there, but we drug him out. I drug him out there, and so he skywatched with me.
I can't blame him. And I got to say, I would not want to go out there either.
But you have to drag someone out there. Maybe you shouldn't be taking him with you.
Yeah.
If he's putting up a fight, that's abduction in itself.
I felt bad. You know what? I do.
It's his kid.
I do. And it's a curiosity to kill the cat. I do. I know. But, they had been going kind of out there with me every single night and had been wanting to go out with me. And it was just that night, he wanted to go out there, but he didn't want to go out there for very long because he was getting leg cramps. Because I think he's going through a bit of growing pains at that time. And he's like, oh, my legs hurt. So he's wanting to go. We're out there for maybe 5 minutes. He was standing up at the curb, and I'm watering, and I'm like, yeah, you just keep an eye on, and keep an eye on. And I just wish this thing would just come down and just come right down here and show us detail, Colton, I said. And
it's too hard. You're going to get what you ask for.
Anyway, and so he was wanting to go in, and it was late, and so I said, well, all right. I said, well, so I stopped. I was maybe out there, the water, maybe 10 minutes. And so I went and stopped and walked up to the curb and dropped the hose and where he was standing. And I said, don't look like we're going to see anything tonight, Colton. I said, I wish that thing would just come down and show me detail. I said, and I took my camera and I turned it off and I put it in my pocket and I go, all right, well, let's go. And both of us actually started to turn. And as our backs was turning, this bright flash with this loud pop. It wasn't a real loud pop, kind of, but not real loud, but it was a bright flash. And then just turned it around. First thought was just like a transformer went out. Or
well, at this point, had these objects made any noise when you saw them?
Mm-hmm.
It was silent.
No.
Right?
Just silent, just nothing at all. We were just out there. And I just walked up to the curb and I just said that. And then when we turned and started to go inside, I was just going to grab the hose and turn off the water and wrap up the hose and go inside. And that's when the pop with the bright flash behind us. And it startled as I turned around. My first thought was like a transformer went out, and then all of a sudden it was hard to make out at first. Thing comes shooting right next to us. It was first thought it was like when I was thinking transformer, then I was thinking like firework because it was after 4th of July, but there's still people out here and still shooting out fireworks for a good few weeks after 4th of July. You know how that is. I was out in the country. You got big old fireworks and stuff around here. These people are always blasting off, but it was clearly not after that. It was this. It come into the detail of what it was, and it was this. It was about maybe the size of a semi-truck tire. It was. A bubble, like a magnetic, like a bubble. It was fire white on the outside, and then on the inside of it, it kind of mixed in kind of like a rainbow kind of colors with kind of a bluish tealish green inside, and then it had all this dust, all this like sparkling like golden dust stuff floating around inside this magnetic bubble around this clear ball. It if I had to put a size on the ball, I would say maybe.
Let me describe this for the audience, because to me it kind of looks like like a sun with an eclipse going over it. That's kind of like the best way I could describe it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And then there's a circle right in the middle with a little red, I guess like a teardrop.
Yeah, it had, and it was a clear ball about the size of a beach ball. It looked, to me and my son, it looked very much like a diamond. It just looked like a diamond glass ball cling, and in the middle of it was, when it was right next to us, the orbit was spinning backwards while it was going forwards. It was moving at a pace of maybe a fast walk, not real slow. When it was right next to us, we seen the red stuff in the middle. We thought almost it looked like another, like a ruby or something, like another stone or something, but it wasn't until it went spinning away from us that we could see from behind it was in a teardrop shape. And it wasn't really loud, chopping noise, but kind of. As it was spinning, it was going over the part of the road where they tore up the cable. They poured in, they tore up and put the new fiber optic cable in a couple years ago. It was going over that part of the road. You could see, I mean, it was very obvious that it was pulling power or something from the road, because you could see like it pulling electricity up from underneath the ground. And it went away about 12 feet in front of us. Then it sat there, and it spun there for a second, almost like, here, like, take a picture. And then it spun over and went over the iron plate manhole cover on the road. It seemed to arc off of it. It made the same popping noise that it did when it showed up next to us. Some sparks, like, roll on the ground. And then there's a power line right above the manhole cover. I don't know, it seemed to arc off of the power line, because up at the corner of the transformer on the power pole, some sparks flew off of it, and then it just took off, and it was just gone. We're just like, me and my son at the same time, both of us, whoa! I mean, it just both came out of our head right when it shot off. And we're just in shock and awe. I mean, I'm on the disc. I knew exactly what it was when that disc came out. I knew, okay, boom, that's a disc. I got my camera. But this was just sitting there trying to figure out what it was, for one thing. And
do you think it might have been like maybe do you think it might have been maybe like a drone or something like that?
I don't know. I heard of people kind of describing kind of these same things, not in such, I guess, detail, but kind of, I just really don't know what to think about, so what it could have been. But so then it was boom, right as it took off, it was almost simultaneously my wife's friend comes out from the house. We thought, oh, they had to have seen it or heard or whatever. Well, she just was leaving. She didn't hear anything. We were just in such shock and awe. I can't even remember what I really even said to her. I think I maybe I mentioned something, really I couldn't. I was in such a shock and awe of amazement at what happened. I was starting to grasp it.
Now,
so she
how old was your son again when you had this?
He was 9.
He was 9 years old at the time. And he's now, what, 11, 12?
Yeah, he'll be 12 on the 4th of April.
Oh, okay. I know, next month is his birthday, by the way. Happy early birthday to him.
Yeah, today's my daughter's birthday, too. Yep. With one on the way, as you know, so they're all going to be right there. Maybe one on one's birthday. So. Oh,
very cool. Well, you said it was your daughter's birthday today?
Yeah.
Oh, let's wish her a happy birthday. What's your daughter's name?
Joey.
Joey, happy birthday to you.
Yeah, she's in the other room. She's watching Full House.
Hey, I used to watch Full House also, so I'm not going to
they're Full House fans.
I'm not going to deny that. You got it, dude. Anyway.
Hey, I'm still a Toys R Us, so,
Hey, cut it out. But anyway.
All right. So anyway, this isn't even over. Here, my wife's friend comes out, and we, like I said, I just don't really know what I said. She got in the car and she took off, but when she was taking off, the neighbor girl that's her friend seen the UFO disc on the hill too. She came home right at the same time. They passed each other, so she was pulling in the driveway as she was taking off from my house, and I'm like, God, yuck, you're going to believe it. Come on over here. And I was telling her, and we were talking, and then that's when she kind of told me a little bit more detail, because she had talked to him and told me that that's when they couldn't get reception, and that they just went, I guess, a turnaround, just went home. They or took off from camping. They didn't even stay up there, and so we're like, oh wow. And so and I was telling her what happened to us, and as we were talking, and me and Colton, and he wasn't saying anything, my boy, and then all of a sudden, as her and I were talking, shooting in front of us was this. Well, it was maybe at a far. Somebody that seen it, if they noticed it, they maybe thought it was a shooting star, but it was a disc. It was a chunk of a disc. You could easily make it out. It just went, all of us went, whoa, at the same time. Well, during the time my boy's not here. He went to his friends tonight, and he was going to be on, as we talked before, so maybe on another show, if I come back, he can be on, because he had it and an encounter of himself. And as her and I were talking, and I was asking her, and I was telling her what was going on, there was 2 discs above the house, above the neighbor's house. There was one, he said, that was about 40 feet above the house, and then there was another one that was on top of it, but a little bit over, and it was going faster. He said he could see the streaks, kind of like a streak kind of it left behind it, but the one that went over the house went over really super slow, and he was able to see up inside of it. And well, he's got his pictures and the drawings and stuff on the MUFON report that he'd went, and it also, the crafts that he's seen had had a glass bubble dome on them too, but they were smaller crafts. So anyway, he was just such shock and awe. I guess I can get it. How he said he wanted to say something, but he was he said he couldn't say anything. He just took all his voice and everything he had out of him. The only time he could say something was when it shot off. And it was so fast that
can you blame him, though?
Said, whoa.
Yeah, can you blame him, though? I mean, little kid, that's not something.
I know it. It did the whole thing. And it's a bummer that he's not here, because you know what? To hear from out of a child's own mouth and in graphic detail of exactly what this looked like and what it was doing too, really is an amazing thing. And he's very, and I do harbor thoughts, feelings, bad feelings of dragging him out there.
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, we got to, address that, because that's not a good move, man. Anything could have happened. I mean, worst case scenario, you guys could have been abducted, and maybe you would have been left behind and him taken. So, I mean, you got to really think that. And for anybody out there who's ever in that position, don't take your kids with you. That's not a good idea.
It was a spontaneous deal. It was, there's so many things that I could have did over, and
oh, I hear you, man. It's like Travis, when I interviewed him, the first thing I asked him was like, what were you thinking when you got out the truck? And he's like, it just kind of happened, man. It was just spontaneous, And I understand. It's one of those experiences where, you're in the moment, you know what I mean? And you're captured by what's going on and by your experience that you're having at that moment. And you don't think about the problems that you could have by just continuing to get captured into that moment. But look, it happens. Just for future reference, don't take your kids out to a field where you just had an experience like that. Now, you've had those are 2 encounters. Now, have you had any encounters recently in the last few years? Because I mean, usually when somebody has those kind of experiences, it follows them a little bit over the years. Have you had anything else that's come across?
I thought I've seen some weird lights. But, nothing definitive that I can say, oh, yeah, hey, this was, definitely. Really, it's been such a big thing on my head, this whole entire encounter, and trying just to guess, get it out there and have people believe me, I guess, is my biggest thing, I don't have a lot of trouble with that, but, I try so hard. I just want everybody to, and The biggest thing is not wanting to see it again and not wanting to have something like that happen again and then go and think about it more.
Well, let me ask you.
I think about it so much already. And
hold on, let me ask you real quick, and don't take this in the wrong way, but why the need to make people believe that this happened to you?
Because I guess it's as much as the need to believe as much as to just tell people what I've seen and to help educate people and to help people know more, and you hear people saying they see these similar things and hear reports of this technology, but you've had the Lazar guy and then you had this Corso guy, and really I think those are probably about the only two guys that ever came out to ever officially say, yeah, okay, we worked on this, I worked on this, I did this. And really when this thing happened, I knew nothing of the UFO anything. All I knew was TV shows that came on with kind of the same stories that they've showed over throughout the years. I didn't know anything about UFO technology. I didn't know anything about really nothing. And I had to do a little bit of soul searching in some days, but when I got on that computer and I looked on, started YouTubing and things, I was enlightened more. But I had never heard of this encounter happening and this type of encounter happening, and so I felt compelled to just tell my encounter. And sometimes I feel if those people don't hear me out, or maybe it's just because they just haven't really heard out the whole thing or read out the whole thing, or I don't know. But I don't know why I've been so compelled to feel like I have to get out here and express to the world of what I've seen. And just really it's because I'm just trying to help educate and to help, people know more. And it makes me feel good to be able to do that. And
well, you understand where I'm coming from by asking that question, though. I mean,
yeah. I completely understand.
It's a scary experience to have. Yeah, no, it's a scary experience to have, but at the same time, it puts your life in a completely different state than you were before. Once you come out with a story like this, I mean, everything changes. This is a game changer. For example, I've been doing this radio stuff for about 5 years now. I've been dealing with ufology for 5 years. Since I started dealing with ufology, it completely changed everything about me as a person, me as a entertainer, and I say that because I did music for a long time and I've dabbled in other things. And now, whenever I'm brought up in anybody's show or on anything that they talk about me, the first thing they say, "Oh, he has a ufology-based show. He's a UFO guy." That's the number one thing that people say because it changes the perception of me because I do these type of shows. But as an abductee or as a person who's had experiences, who's been a witness to UFOs, it changes you even more in the public eye, especially when you come forward with your experience. Has this caused problems internally, like at work and stuff like that for you?
No. It kind of a little bit with the neighbors.
Okay.
What happened is that my sister is friends with the neighbors. Well, I'm friends with them too. And she went to go get her fingernails done one day. It was a couple months after the encounter. And she went to go get her fingernails done. She was there with the neighbor. And, well, I love my sister, and she's excited, and what's going on? And she's like, well, did you hear what happened to Chris? And she's like, well, no, I kind of heard what happened. He talked to, my husband and told him about, because I talked to him on the first encounter days before. They didn't know about the second encounter. A lot of people didn't know about the second encounter. I kept that one quiet, of course. And so she goes and she goes, well, we have our house got broken into a couple years back, and we put a video camera on a security camera on our patio. And she goes, I wonder if maybe that might be on videotape. And so my sister told me this. She calls me up. She says, Chris, I talked to the neighbor, and she said, that and so I went and oh, wow, I kind of was like, so she hadn't said anything, but nevertheless, so what can I do then? Damage is done. So I seen her out there, and I waved her, and I said, it was like the next day, as maybe that day I talked to my sister or whatever. And so when I went and I called her over to start to go over to talk to her. She just went and went into her garage and shut the garage door on me, and I just walked right up to her house and said, and knocked on, and then her son answers, and he, hello? And then I was like, well, is your mom here? He goes, no, she's in the shower. He said, I hear her walk in the garage, you know, and then so I just kind of, and then, well, so I just didn't even leave him. I just didn't even bother with it. And it's kind of put a little bit of some weird blood there, but it's all good, I guess.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like anybody is too hurt by
No.
issue,
But after it was, all during this time, after my encounter, it was about the first, I'd say maybe 3 months. You know, I was telling everybody, of course, who I could tell, all my friends talking about it. That's all I could talk about, just kind of like now. And every time I get on the phone,
yeah, how was that experience? When you're telling your buddies, you know, hey, by the way, I had this experience the other day with my kid. You're gonna laugh. This is crazy. How did that conversation go? Because I can understand the wife being really accepting to this kind of stuff because she knows you and she knows you're not a liar. You're not a person who will make stuff up. So she has, but you know, your buddies, you know, they might be like, well, maybe he's playing a joke on us. You know, I mean, how did they believe you right off the bat? Or?
You know, every single one of my friends know what type of person I am, and that really has been a real good thing for me because I'm a very honest person. I try to be and live my life to be the best person I can be, and people know that. And so when I speak from my heart, I really have never really had anybody to ever sit back and go, yeah, this guy's full of crap, because after I'm done telling my story and they see my sincerity and they could tell my being graphic about it and descriptive, and people seem to get it and they understand. If it was just me and I went out there and it just happened to me itself and the second encounter, I wouldn't have did all what I have done to go out and try to spread my encounter. But you know, I had, you know, my boy there, and then the neighbor on the second part of it, even though she wasn't there on the orb encounter. Heck, she seen that the second part of it with the, you know, disc that went by, and it's probably where it came out of, you know, I'm sure, that thing. And yeah, so you know, it's been
Chris, let me ask you, because, you know, out where you're at in Portland, you're not that far off from areas where they do a lot of test flying of secret aircrafts. Bob Lazar is famous for talking about some of this stuff. Now, in your opinion, would you say is extraterrestrial, or do you think there's an earthly connection in Area 51 and some of the stuff we're test flying out there?
Well, this is okay. Now, where I'm at, I'm one thing. I'm in outside of Salem, 14 miles. I'm in the Ring of Fire. I got Mount Hood, I got Mount Adams, I got Mount Bachelor, and I got Mount St. Helens. I got the Ring of Fire all around me. And I got a military base just 14 miles from me. It's a Army National Guard base, real kind of a small. You'll get like FedEx planes. We'll take those stuff there. UPS. Private.
Wait. That sounds a little bit odd that FedEx and UPS land at a military base.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they do, and they actually have has a private for people that have their own planes and stuff there too. They can go in and out. It's not a commercial. Where main, you know.
Well, if it's not commercial, FedEx and UPS shouldn't be flying in there, unless, of course, they're filling up the chemtrail containers to spray.
Could be.
Well, there's a lot of those around here. Chemtrails left and right.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, but no, they do, and so they have those are the planes that just are always going, you know, in and out there, and so that's 14 miles from me, and then I have Boeing, which is probably about 150 miles from me.
Mm-hmm.
Boeing and you know, Seattle, I think, is like 220 miles from where I'm at. So really, by getting up into space in a plane, that's not far at all. So anything's possible.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Now, have you?
And after my encounter on the first disc, about 10 minutes afterwards, I heard some but I heard some helicopters coming from
I think you're going to go exactly where my next question was. Have you had any military types approach you, or any government agents approach you since you've gone public and addressed what happened to you?
Yeah, I was about getting into that.
I figured
it was. It was about within the months after my encounter, and I was outside, and I was doing. I don't know what I was. Maybe it was not even the weeks. It must probably just been within the weeks, and I was outside during the day, and then this. Black Suburban. It was all black. I mean, nothing like I had seen, all brand new, but all like jet black. It had no plates on it. It had, that I could see, had totally tinted out windows. The windows were so tinted, they were too tinted for because you got to have a law that they can only be tinted out so far. And it went by my neighborhood. It went by fast. And then as soon as it went by my house, and I was out there, weeding my yard. I don't know what I was doing. It went by really super slow, really creepy, super slow. And then as it went by my house, it just went right up around the corner. It seemed the only thing it did is it just went around the corner and did a U-turn to turn back, to come swing back around, to kind of go fast, and then go really super slow by my house again. And then as soon as it got by my house, I sat there. I just had this feeling. So I gave him the crappiest look I could get. I just looked it straight at him, stared at him with this real crappy look, and I eyeballed him down. And as soon as it got past my house, it sped up and took off. Then there was this guy that sat in front of our house all day long in a car, but he was parked just not right directly in front of my house, but actually just in front of the neighbors who had the encounter too. The one that had the second half of it, and the neighbor over here in front of her house. They sat out there for a long time, and then the neighbor went over there and asked him who he was, and well, I don't know what he said, but he just took off. So yeah, those were kind of two creepy, weird things happened to me. I don't know how much government that could have been, But
nobody knocked on your door and said,
Mr.
Brown.
No man black knocking on my door, huh? That's odd, because I really did. I figure if anything, I'd be having somebody like that showing up at my door, but nobody ever did.
I don't think at this point in time they're really going after people, though. I mean, there's so many people that have come forward over the last 30 years. At this point, it's kind of a moot point to go after anybody. If it is government officials.
It is. And also I wasn't sneaking around doing something that I wasn't supposed to be doing and finding out something I wasn't supposed to find out.
Right, you weren't trespassing anywhere or anything like that, so.
Yeah.
Now,
I figured I did it for a purpose.
Have you been doing a lot of sky watching since you've had your experiences, or have you not gone back out?
That's where I get back to my mind just has a hard time getting over it. And so really I don't. I'm so, just so concentrated. I know, well, I really just don't want it to happen again, because as detailed and as close of an encounter and all that it was, I mean, geez, why wouldn't it happen again, I guess? But I don't go out there, and I mean, what if I'm out in the car or strolling along, or I'm outside or whatever, I'll, look up, but I'm not like I was before my encounter, when I was in during that time, and I was just sitting there just wanting to see it. Now I'm just kind of like, well, my brain can handle it,
Well, let me ask you about that. Have you ever heard of the laws of attraction?
Oh, kind of, yeah.
The Secret. Are you afraid that maybe going around talking about your experience might attract them to come back and visit you again? Maybe you will attract that experience one more time?
Well, I don't really think it's as much as that. It's just as much as I just don't want it almost to happen again, because it's been such a stressful thing, me thinking about it. I feel like it, maybe, I guess, if it happened again, then
I mean, would you want to? I mean, honestly speaking, I know that's a scary situation, but wouldn't you want to know? And I mean, wouldn't you want to take a ride on a UFO and experience it? If they could guarantee you that you're going to come back unharmed.
Yeah, there's no guarantee of that.
Well, let's just say there's a guarantee. Okay, you know for a fact you're going to come back unharmed. They're not going to probe you anywhere nasty. You're going to come back in one piece, and you're going to be healthy. If that's the case, would you want to take that ride? Because look, for all intents and purposes, what happened to say Travis Walton? While a scary situation, he came back not only unharmed, but he's been very healthy for a long time. No injuries, no illnesses. I mean, the guy is like a picture perfect of health as far as he tells the world. And by looking at him, it looks like to be true. I've never heard of him coming down with even the flu. So, obviously they weren't that sinister to him. They didn't kill him or anything. So, if you can be guaranteed, would you want to actually have that experience where you get abducted and you go on a trip and learn a little bit more in depth? If there are aliens that you're witnessing.
Yeah, but they're going to erase his memory anyway. Come on.
Hey, Travis's memory was erased.
That's really the thing. Is as much as I mean, that'd be such a fantastic thing. I mean, I don't know how much I could get out of my head then. So it's been, I feel like, gosh, it's just such a stressful thing. I mean, it would be. I get it, Angel. Do that'd be awesome. I mean, that's like, I love to go for a ride. I mean. That'd be, yeah. But I can tell you this, that, after seeing that stuff and after seeing it close and after seeing that stuff in the middle, the clear ball, for one thing, that's David Copperfield, even getting that stuff in the middle of a clear ball. And for one thing, I've never even seen a clear ball to even be even that size. If inside the orb itself was a crazy thing because it looks so diamondish, and then the huge glass dome that was on top of the disc had to be the biggest glass dome to ever be constructed in the whole entire world. If there was anything we'd have it like Smithsonian if there was something like that we created that big. So all I know is that if it's in space, they have, if it was ET and they have space, there's all kinds of big, diamonds and stuff. I guess that'd be the only way I could think of that could be a government deal, or an ET deal. Because when I heard about Balbazar talking about this technology, he talked about this highly dangerous red stuff, but he didn't talk about no clear ball that it was stored in. He talked about more of an apparatus that you put this stuff in. And
right.
I know why the government keeps this stuff quiet, because this stuff is radioactive. This is the stuff that people are going and are voting and are trying to get the government to not use this stuff and chemical weapons and all this stuff. You think the government's going to come out and say, yeah, no, but we're still using this in flights and space travel, and we're still using this stuff, this highly radiated stuff. But see, so that's a big thing. So I understand why the government keeps it quiet, because it's a to even be working with that stuff is apparently a no-no. So,
yeah, no, not only that. Let's be honest. If there was any outbreaks or anything like that in Area 51, and the blame was stuff they're being exposed to by the government, and that stuff becomes public, all kind of hell could break loose. The fact that you have a witness as young as your son, who was 9 years old, I think that speaks volumes. And I really would love to speak to him one day and get his input on what happened. Because look,
I'd love to come back.
The one thing, Chris, and I'd love to have you back with your son, and we could talk to him also. The one thing for me always is the voice of a child is very important in these cases, because kids, for the most part, when it comes to stuff like this, they won't lie. They just don't know how, for the most part. For the most part, not all kids. Some kids are born with that spark to lie, but I don't think all kids are born are wired like that.
Plus, some of them perceive a lot better than we do.
Correct.
Around them.
That is correct. Yeah. So I mean, I'd love to hear his side of things. But guys, if you want to call in and you want to ask your questions, again, open lines for the rest of the 30 minutes here.
Yeah, I'd love to have some callers.
Love to have you your input. There's a lot of people listening in, so please call on in. 786-247-8127 is the call-in number. PSN Radio on Skype. Again, we're talking to Chris Brown. And Chris, how many people, when you started talking about your story and going around on some of the shows, and you were, approaching some of the hosts like myself and Bill and Nancy and some of the other hosts, what was the feedback that you got when you said your name was Chris Brown, first of all? Serious question.
Well, that's the thing. What's the name Chris Brown? Because I tell you, that kid over there in wherever the hell he's from, he's giving me a bad rap. So hopefully I'm here to capitalize and make this Chris Brown with a good name, because that guy just doesn't seem to be nothing but trouble.
I say it in jest, but I actually had somebody this week who was asking me, who you guys are having on Skywatchers this week? And I said, we're having Chris Brown. They're like, isn't he in jail? Didn't he just punch Rihanna a couple years ago? And I'm like, no.
Yeah. Yeah, get your
this Chris Brown hasn't punched anybody. He hasn't punched He's not in prison. You got to get that all the time, though. It's got to be funny for you.
Yeah, it is. So, but...
Now, to distinguish, is your full name Christopher? Because I think you should go by Christopher.
My full name's Christopher Brown. So,
any middle initials in there that we could throw in? Christopher?
J. Justin.
Oh, my God. I'm not even kidding. I was just thinking about J. I'm not even kidding. I swear it was about to come out of my mouth as soon as you said J. And I haven't looked at your bio, so I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
No, because everywhere that you see his stuff online, it says Chris Brown. I mean, you never see Christopher J. Brown.
Yeah.
So on
the
Scout's
MUFON report, I have a different name on the MUFON report. It's Charles Bradley is the name that they put on it. It's a fake name, and after I go on the radio and just kind of at that time I did that, but during that report, really I didn't know anything about the radio, so I was kind of going upon what I thought was best at that point in time, and my name's out now, so.
Now,
there's a lot of Chris Browns.
You can't go back now, son. Chris,
it's a popular name. So you got sports players, and you got singers, and it's a great name.
Just don't punch any women, and you'll be okay.
They keep their fingers away from me. So.
As long as you don't punch ladies, you'll be okay, and you'll give that name a good reputation. Going back to a more serious topic here. Sure. Let me ask you: are you looking to maybe write a book or anything like that to further expand on your story and get your story out there?
I would love to write a book, and actually, I kind of did. And the guy really liked it, but it was just I'm just so new to everything, and it was just like 14 pages or something, just something.
Well, that's a treatment. That's not even a book. That's like I can write 14 pages. I can't read 14 pages.
It was nothing at all. I wouldn't call it books. I just something I thought I would try, but really, it's a lot of work. It's money and it's time, and I can say that when my encounter first happened, really the whole writing to people, being computer, I wasn't real computer illiterate guy. My spelling was horrible. I mean, it took me forever to get spell check on my computer when I'd be writing to people. So there could be a lot of times my writing was so bad. I mean, so sorry to say that they could say, well, this guy's just a fool. I can't even understand his writing. But I tell you, over this encounter, it's turned me into quite a little scholar, because I've had to write and I've had to get myself around. So I've had to really make sure that when I discover spell check on the computer helps, but,
it does become your best friend, doesn't it?
It really has become a whole education. This whole entire encounter, right, and getting my encounter out and trying to expose what I seen as I'm writing to people and try to be as descriptive as I can, and it's a tricky deal. So I'm glad I have you guys to take my hand and help me get my voice out on the radio, and I just appreciate it.
No, that's what we're here for, my friend. But again, what's the next step now for you? Have you thought about what you're going to do next besides?
Well,
couple other shows?
This year I was going to try to go and here in McMinnville at the UFO Festival. They in May they have every year. I was going to be the guest. Wanted to be the guest for this year, but they were full. Excuse me, and so. I'll be speaking next year at the 2015 UFO Festival here in McMinnville. But this year I'll be going to I'll be at the MUFON desk. I don't know which day yet I'll be there. I got to get a hold of the MUFON director. He wants me to call him back, but he's going to have me there for a little bit at their table. I don't know what I'll be doing, but next year it's kind of a bummer because my story just came out on Open Minds and Blackball, and so I'm really this year I'm really wanting to press real hard to get my encounter out, but maybe if something, by next year maybe more things will happen when I'm at the UFO Festival. So.
Mentioning Open Minds, I wanted to ask you, has MUFON approached you at all recently or in the last few months or a year? They approached you at all to, maybe talk about your story and see if there's any other, people, I guess, experiencers who have had similar encounters as yours with the kind of thing you saw?
Well, I'm sure that he would. I'll be with the MUFON director here in Oregon next month at the festival, and I was actually going to talk to him about that. And it's been a couple of years, we kind of been in and out of touch, except for last week I talked to him for the first time in a while. But he had told me that before, that depending on where I got in my that he would be willing to share my encounter again. And plus, he hasn't had it since I've updated, and I have my picture that I made with my Photoshop that my friend made up for me. And before, it was just my lousy stick-figured pictures and my son's drawings from the original MUFON report. And, you see those, and those are just horrible, but I tried my best. But I was able I don't even know what Photoshop was, but nevertheless, I found out Photoshop, and I was able to put together a picture of what the orb looked like. I found a time warp bubble image of it, and then I found a clear ball, a sphere, and then I found a red teardrop, and then I found a rainbow ring, coloring, and then I found a fire around the moon. They had an image, and I took the fire and I mixed them all together, and then I made a picture of the orb as best as I could do it. If I had the computer, and I could just make something that just would be almost exactly to what it almost looked like, to a T, and they're showing the spinning of it, and all what we've seen was so much I've just, the Bob Lazar thing, it's a tricky deal, because here we're looking at a guy who came out with videos back in the 1990 or whatever it was, but where's he been since, he's kind of a missing guy. And then Albert Einstein always showed the spinning. Always talked about the spinning and all that, and the orb. When it went, that was this like the bubble vortex thing that was around the clear ball that was been in the space around the clear ball. It was the orb or the bubble around it that was actually propelling the orb forward and was pushing it forward. Because you could see it just the whole apparatus of it spinning. And then when it was going forward. So it's really a whole different flow of travel of what, we expect, because, here you go and you see a car, you see a plane and a jet or a rocket, and you got the boost coming out of it. Well, this just doesn't really have the boost. This just has that thing around it that's, it's just like all what those guys say, what they talk about, but it's kind of like it's really, you have to see it in order to get a whole different kind of a concept of flight, there's no thrust to it. And when the UFO, the two went over the house that my son had seen, when he had looked up, he'd seen up into the UFO, he had seen the same type of little orb things that were on the bottom of the disc that looked just like, almost like they just flew off of the disc. And, who's to say it just flew off of that thing and then kind of did its own, made itself its own little probe or whatever, I don't know, and then it reattaches itself to the craft, maybe, I don't know. But he can describe the same type of light things that were underneath the disc. Looked like just like little orbs that were powering it. So when people are seeing these videos and they're always seeing the big bright flash, well,
right.
It's that around it. It's the big vortex bubble around it that's brightening up and pushing it forward. So it wasn't, when I went and I got on YouTube, and I seen a lot of things, and that's when I seen the crop circles. They had an old video. It was like,
now, were they crops? That's a good question. Were there any crops around that area where you had your first two sightings?
Well, I got fields all around me. Around me. I'm in the town of population of
that's interesting.
2,500 people. So I got fields all around me. I didn't have any crop circles around here at that time, but I'd say probably about 20 years ago, about 5 miles from me, there was a crop circle out in a field, out actually just right on my road here, and sat up there for a couple months. But I had seen that video, and I'd seen a couple of these orbs that were going over, and they were the same looking orbs that we seen. Of course, we seen it up close, but they were the same looking orbs that were going over the fields. And then I'm looking at them, thinking, oh man, here I am. I'm seeing that orb, and I'm seeing there just was a bubble. I mean, Ezekiel talked kind of about the same thing, a wheel within a wheel, but he wouldn't call it a bubble, and he wouldn't call it a ball. Only thing he could describe it to was a wheel, because that's all they could go to. And but when I
kind of like Ezekiel's wheel, huh?
Yeah, when you look at the grass pattern, you can see that it's got spun, and it's kind of got a bubble shape, kind of the spin look to it with the from what I hear is that the radiation changes the grass DNA, and then the blade ages, and well, that's all kind of radiation sickness is what that is. And in the middle of that clear ball, that clear sphere, was really deadly looking radiated stuff. So, I then you had people saying the reports of orbs on crop circles, and it was just my encounter, and so many things came, just.
Now, do you guys get do you get any crop circles reported in that area?
No, I haven't found any.
That would be interesting if there were crop circles around that area. That would make a lot of sense that you saw something. Maybe you caught them on the act when they were about to create a circle nearby somewhere.
Oh, that would have been cool.
One of those things. That would be cool to actually, drive up one day and see an orb start creating a circle in the middle of a field. That would be really cool to see. There's a video on that somebody put on the internet years ago, and it was obviously somebody came forward and said it was a fake. It was really well done CGI, but that would be really something neat to witness. The way you describe the orb you saw, though, really does take me back to Ezekiel's wheel, and it reminds me of the description of that within the Hebrew Bible and stuff. Have you thought about maybe a biblical connection to
that's on my Facebook page that I made up. I have the pictures of what I made, and then the pictures of what Ezekiel made. What I made and what he made, there's so much resemblance. The only thing it was is that in all his pictures, he never depicted they always predict like little bars going across, making like a. But if you took the bars away and you just shaded all that in, it would be a bubble. But see, that's the only way Ezekiel could only say a wheel because, well, they only had the wheel going for a short amount of time. He didn't know what a bubble was.
Right.
He didn't know what a ball was.
He didn't know what a UFO was. He didn't know what aliens were. He had no concept of any of that stuff. So yeah, wheels
and the scripture, in the Bible scripture, it even from what he even just says was in the wheel is pretty much basically what I'm described of seeing. So, he talked about seeing a gleam in the middle with an amber burning in the middle of the gleam. Well, the gleam was a clear ball, the diamond looking thing, and the red amber in the middle of it was, it was amber. It was cherry red, this stuff in the middle. It looked so deadly. It was so close from me that if I would put my hand out and I would have touched it, it would have melted my hand off. Well, it would have probably just killed me right on the spot, made me sick, or, I'm sure if I had even survived. That's how close it was. So, we could just see inside of it, just so perfect. It was so pretty. For one thing, it was really pretty. But
that's probably what captivates you the most. The fact that it actually is, anything. I think anything extraterrestrial to us is going to look just amazing and beautiful and something different. You kind of get that vibe even when you watch a movie like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where they're at the end, they see the ship. Go with
beautiful. Come on.
Oh, come on! A ship that's flying in the sky or an orb like that. That's going to look beautiful.
If you would have seen that, trust me,
dude, it could be
just.
Even the Klingon bird of prey looks beautiful to me.
Okay, fine, but what happens if it's organically made and looks so scary and you just want to run from it?
I will run, but I still think it'll look beautiful.
Okay.
Just saying. Guys, we're almost out of time. Man, I'm so disappointed again we didn't get any calls for the amount of listeners we have on tonight. Hopefully, we'll catch some listeners calling in soon. But look, it's been a blast having you on here, Chris, with us, and we definitely have to have you back on, because we could do another 2 hours with you easily, talking about your case and stuff.
I could go for easy another 2 hours. There's a whole subjects of my encounter that it covers so many different things, I believe, and so I feel so very kind of lucky that I've seen it, and I hear about people saying and talking about this technology but to be able to see it is an amazing thing. So.
There's definitely some synchronicity here tonight also with your name with a J. I was thinking of J and Ezekiel's wheel, the whole thing. So it's a interesting, I guess, irony that we both thought of Ezekiel's wheel when we saw this, or when you saw this thing, when I saw your this depiction of it. It's like I said to everybody listening, look, it's an interesting story. You guys make up your own mind whether you believe him or you don't believe him. Again, he sounds very credible. He sounds like he's speaking from the heart.
I do.
And that's the most important thing. Before we let you go, though, Chris, I want to give you a chance here to give out any website addresses or anywhere that people can find you and maybe contact you for future shows or anything. Do you have anything right now besides Facebook? I guess would be one way to get to you, right?
Yeah, you can give me. I have a Facebook page for my encounter. It's Celebrity. I always go Sublimity Close Encounters. It's called the Sublimity Close Encounter.
And what's Sublimity?
Sublimity is a town I live in. That's the name of the town.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
okay, gotcha.
And that was actually the MUFON here in town. He had put her name and said just called it the Sublimity Close Encounter, and that sounded good to me. So
boom, right there, you got the name of your book. I'm saying, I'll put you in contact with some people that publish books, man, and you can get a book published. That's a great name for a book, the Sublimity Close Encounter.
Oh, it is. It's a book. I tell you what, it's. We
gotta make it longer than 14 pages, though, Chris.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's going to have to be a little bit longer than 14 pages, but definitely, it's a book. It's definitely a book. It's a movie, in my opinion. In my head, it's a Steven Spielberg Hollywood, movie in my head. So yeah, everything's great. But I'm very just happy to be able to tell my encounter here with you guys on the radio and have people hear me and just help educate. That's really my biggest thing. Ultimately, it makes me feel good to be able to come out and tell people and just let people know. And maybe this has happened before to somebody else, and maybe that person never said anything.
Guarantee you that.
Yeah, maybe they were drunk or high, or maybe they didn't think anybody was going to tell them.
Guarantee that too.
Everybody knew they were, and so they just never said anything. You just don't know, and so
I guarantee some of those were definitely drunk or high, but not all of them, and that's the important thing. What you said, Alan, earlier, the 1 point whatever percent, just 1.1.
If 1% of 1% of all the things that have been caught or that MUFON has recorded or whoever's recorded is true, that just blows the whole thing up.
So not everybody's a drunken, idiot who's high on the Mary Jane over there.
Oh, you mean like you?
Okay. Well, shush, I'm not a drunken idiot. But anyway, not everybody is intoxicated when they're out on the field or when they're doing any sky watching or when they're doing anything. So, that 1%, that's all it takes. Again, it's been just a blast having you on. We do have to let you go, sadly enough. But like I said, I want to have you back on soon, Chris. So we'll definitely be in contact.
I'd love to be back on soon. I appreciate you having me on, and I'd be on any show you need me to be on, anytime, any place. So I appreciate it.
Thank you, buddy. You've been great.
Thank you to you, and thank you to MUFON and everybody else. So appreciate it.
Talk to you soon, Chris. Take care, buddy.
Okay, bye-bye.
Mr. Chris Brown is on with us. Again, he's a gentleman who had his own experience. He's had his sightings, and he's gone public with it, and he's told a lot of people in a lot of different radio shows what happened. And now, we're honored to have him on this show and hear for ourselves, what happened to him and what his experience was like. And he can share with you, the audience. And again, hopefully, you engage in the conversation tonight and you call and ask Chris any questions. Chris, I'm sure, is more than open to having you guys call in and ask him what anything is on your mind. Chris, welcome to Skywatchers Radio, my friend, and we're happy to have you here, man. We really are.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Now, for the audience who might not be aware of your story, I know you've been on Open Minds, the website. They've ran an article about you, and you've done the rounds on a couple of different radio shows. So some people might know, what happened to you, your background. But for the audience right now listening in, there's a lot of people on the, listening in tonight. Tell us what happened to you, bro. Tell us your story.
Mine was just had started off on the 2011 and August 18th. It was at about 8:50. I had went out at p.m. in the evening. I had went out to go water my garden in my back, and I watered that for a couple of minutes and pulled my hose around to the side of the house all the way in front to water my front yard, and I put a bunch of weed killer stuff on my yard. I get that
little rush, a little rush, yeah. The adrenaline rush. It's adrenaline. It's adrenaline rush. Is what it is.
Yeah. Well, this was just kind of my body. All of a sudden got everything was real pinkish, real kind of blue was kind of pinkish, everything got real blurry.
Okay.
Just for a second, and I just in my head, just like said, "Oh God!" in my head, because I felt it. I just felt like it was like trying to pull me in or something. I don't know. It was it's a really odd,
like a tractor beam type of, like it just like a little sucking.
Well, I guess that's all I can say. It felt like I just would have just let my body go. That who knows where it happened, but it was just the first thing, because I got so scared, that I felt like that, and I go, "Oh God!" in my head, of course, and then it stopped.
Uh-huh.
I didn't sit there and go, "Oh my, wow, what a feeling I just had." I just was still caught up in the moment as it was still there in front of me.
Well, Chris, let me ask you, did you have any missing time when you felt that feeling?
No, I didn't have any missing time because I had my iPod with me the whole entire time.
Okay.
And I knew at the times that it was when I walked out to water, and so like I said, I had that feeling for a second, and then I said, "Oh God," and it went away, and I just I didn't sit there and go, "Oh wow, how did I just feel?" I was still so caught up in the moment. But I was in a weird situation where it was I was the only one out there at that. Just caught my eye then, and it was out about a mile from me, out in the field. Actually, on the pictures on the site, they showed the pictures of kind of the outline of the tree where I'm talking about. Behind the tree was this. All I seen, what caught my eye was this gigantic, huge glass dome that sat on this top of this disc. This disc had lights going around it. I couldn't see the whole circumference of it. It was so big. If I had to put a size on it, all I could put it on would be an aircraft carrier, luxury cruise liner. That's about the only size I could put on it. It had blue and red lights. They seemed to kind of be twinkling and kind of going counterclockwise from each other, back and forth. And I was like, whoa. I mean, it was, I threw the hose. I was just sucking the hose and getting it out of the street. And I just sat there and I literally sat in there thinking to myself, is this happening? is this even real? But I knew it was kind of real. I mean, I knew it was happening anyway. And so when I went over there to kind of get a better look at it, because I thought I'd seen it maybe kind of start to move, but when I really kind of looked at it, and then that's when it just it's hard to explain, because it was like you're going down a roller coaster really super fast, and you get that feeling in your belly every time. There was no one even on the streets, and I live in a small town anyway, but still, it was just so dead. Nobody was around. It was like it knew that it was like I was the only one out there or something. And
let's tell the audience by where exactly did this take place. You're out in
I'm in Sublimity, Oregon.
Okay, and that's where this incident happened.
That's about 50 miles outside of Portland.
Okay.
Anyway, believe it or not, during this time, I started to rush over to my neighbor's house, and I had really kind of didn't know them real well then, and just kind of the people they are, and I kick myself to this day, but why I stopped, I don't know, but I stopped. And I went back, and I had my iPod, and I went to go look at it, and then that's when I noticed it started to move on me. And then and so it was kind of like getting the rings up going, oh, yeah, I had my iPod. I mean, I was in shock and awe for a little bit. It actually took me a little bit to figure out that, the heck, I had my iPod on me. But I was excited and shaking so hard. I couldn't even, I just had the iPod not long.
At any point, did you scream to try to get somebody out there to maybe be a witness for you, or?
I didn't. Would've, could've, should've. Why? I mean, and I could've. Angel, I could've went over to the neighbor's house. I could've banged on the neighbor's door and could've came out there, and I'm sure, but I was just such caught up with this moment at the time. The day I was needing to water it and keep up, and so I pulled my hose out. It was, probably about maybe 9 o'clock around that time, straight up PM. And I pulled it out to get all the kinks out, and I found myself out in the middle of the street. It was not real dark, but not all the way dark. It was still kind of light, because it was in the summertime, so it was kind of at that point where it was kind of getting dark, but it was still light,
Right.
And so I have fields all around me, and when I had pulled it out in the road, there's a field right straight above me, and I noticed out in the field some blue and red lights. They kind of really were scattered, and there was still kind of light. I just didn't take it in, and so it seemed kind of odd, but I just really didn't take it in enough to sit there and to take it in. So I pulled my hose back and started watering. And watered one half of the yard for, probably 20 minutes, I'd say. And I have hedges on the one side, so I can't see down the field. I did that side of the yard, like, say, for about 20 minutes, and then I went to go pull my hose out again. I found myself out in the middle of the road. It was a little bit darker, and it was, I'd say probably, 20 minutes later. So when I pulled it out, I got, well, I'd say, I don't know, maybe 40 feet of the hose stretched out, and when I got out in the middle of the road, it just was boom. It